Shannon B. Douglas, this is While We Were Asleep. I'm on the campus of Mount Royal University in Calgary, Alberta. And I thought I would take a walk around today because I've had the pleasure of chatting with Frances Widdowson in a small group discussion in January, not long after she was dismissed from Mount Royal. And I thought I would cover off a couple of blasphemous questions here on campus and explore some ideas because I've been traveling through Western Canada now on my way back to Ottawa and on to New Brunswick, an across Canada trip, talking to people about woke infiltration and woke ideology. And one of the things here on campus is a religious fervor around the concept of decolonization. And there's a narrative that has to be adhered to, otherwise people run a threat of being canceled, investigated, and losing their jobs. And it isn't just Mount Royal University, it is institutions, organizations, and educational facilities all across the country. This idea of European genocide of the indigenous people of North America. Well, there certainly were confrontations and border skirmishes and tragedies of history. And it doesn't matter where we look on the planet Earth, wherever there was human beings, we have those similar tragedies and border skirmishes and progresses of one dominant culture over another. That's a sad fact of humanity. And as humans act in atrocious ways, we can look back at any relation between two different cultures where there was a disparity of technology and capacity in history and see similar patterns. One of the patterns that we see consistently with human beings is the othering of the enemy. Group identity, in-group, out-group bias, and formation of relations leads to human tragedy and always has. Doesn't matter where you come from. No human being is immune from group identity conflict. And we will make up outrageous lies about our enemies in order to dehumanize them when it's convenient for us, in order to win our territories and win our wars. And that's happening actually with woke identity politics today. The woke other people who they don't agree with, and people whose narratives that they can attack and belittle and censor in order to appropriate and colonize institutions that they are now controlling. So we're seeing what people are describing as institutional capture, where people of a particular ideology have insinuated themselves into institutions like school boards, for example, in British Columbia with SOGI 123 curriculum, where anybody who questions this orthodoxy and this puritanical worldview is smeared, defamed, destroyed, fired, and punished. And the punishment is the process. It's not the outcome, because our legal systems are beginning to catch up with these insanities, these woke assertions. But the fact that a person or a group can make insinuations about another group and then set about the mechanisms of investigation and punishment through a process, forcing people to spend years of their life and countless dollars trying to defend these lies and these libels and these slanders, is quite terrifying. So what is colonization? Well, I read in a book years ago, Memories, Dreams, and Reflections by psychologist Carl Jung, that he felt he was the last, or perhaps the first of his family's generation to emerge from the Dark Ages. Okay, so his parents were Christian, and they lived traditionally in a village, and were let's say low tech, low information, and he was the first educated person out of his family to join the modern world. And very, very similarly, I share that sentiment. Both my mother and my father were born on the kitchen table. My father on a farm, my mother in a fishing village in an outport community in Newfoundland. For countless generations before that. And if you are like me, you go back a couple generations and you see the same thing. Countless generations before that, my parents lived off the land and the sea. And very often and mostly from the efforts of their own labor. Now, there was a interview that I saw with Jordan Peterson, and I don't remember the author's name, but he pointed to the reality that in the year 1800, 90% of humanity lived in abject poverty and lived off of the land itself or the sea. 90% of humanity. Only 10% lived in urban environments or had resources of value add of craftsmanship, artisanship, commerce, distribution, where they lived in cities. Now that number is upside down. 90% of humanity lives in urban centers, and we live in technological environments, and we live in modern cities. This was a very rapid change, never happened in human history over the course of 200 years. And everybody in the world, all of our ancestors went through this change, including the indigenous people, everywhere. And as we're bringing people out of poverty all around the world, that's what we're doing. We are shifting the landscape of tribal relationships, of clan communities, of the way human beings used to be into the modern world. And the idea of colonization of Europeans, by Europeans, of indigenous people has a high historical temporal correlation to this rapid advance in human technology and our shift in our means of production and how we live and where we live. This wasn't a conscious decision by anybody. It was a manifestation of rapidly evolving technology, as well as our capacity to create economy and economies that supported people and the advancement of technology, and how we figured out how to live in larger groups together, thanks to liberal democracy. Liberal democracy gave us the ability to disagree with the people without killing them, and to have open discussions and debates without having wars. And that has been a fundamental part of do I want to go that deep into stages of human development that we've been through over many centuries. There are numerous models for stages of human development, or the developmental levels of human society. And we've made a shift from mythic society. In many ways, my friend George still lives in a mythic world as a storyteller and as a knowledge keeper, into rational society, where we collectively developed our rational language, our scientific methods, our ability to manipulate resources and information and economy for growth. Along the same path, that technological development, more efficient extraction or production of farm surplus and of ocean surplus, which has had negative consequences, right? We've had population explosion due to the invention of the pill and the development of medical technology that allows better survival, far greater survival for mothers, and as a consequence, a lower infant mortality. And with lower infant mortality, we had a population explosion on the planet, and all those people need to eat. And so when we have a population explosion, a radical change in our technology, and everybody needs to eat, and everyone's moving to the cities, there are there are other consequences. And the idea of colonization and decolonization is a narrative that says that some group of Europeans somewhere created this situation where we moved off the land and we moved into the cities, and that somehow people living today need to have guilt about this, and that certain groups of people, particularly people of European descent, are particularly and uniquely responsible for the negative outcomes of this human flourishing. It really is a terrifying narrative. And the more I talk to people across Canada who are affected by this woke ideology, the more I'm concerned. I saw a person I'm going to be meeting with this week, who I'm really looking forward to meeting, talk about her parents coming from Eastern Europe, in an interview almost a year ago, saying that we have, in many ways, we are living in a society that is less free than some Eastern European communist societies were, at least according to her parents who lived through those ages. We are in a precarious position in Canada if we allow these othering narratives, these boundaries of colonization and these power plays to take place within our societies. We cannot allow our institutions to be colonized by ideologues, and our children's bodies to be colonized by trans ideology, and our friends in the gay and lesbian community be colonized into erasure by these hideous philosophies. My name is Shannon B. Douglas. This is While We Were Asleep.